middle children of history, man. No purpose or place. We have no Great War, no Great Depression. Our Great War is a spiritual war. Our Great Depression is our lives.
Hey, right.
Hey, come out,
Right,
punch,
right, right, right. Circle left, circle left.
Stand still, huh?
Okay, ready. 1 o'clock. Good. 12. 5 to 3. I got mixed up.
There is no way that you could have been as bad at hockey as you are at golf.
All right, let's go. You like that, old man? You want a piece of me?
I don't want a piece of you. I want the whole thing.
You don't mess with Bob.
Bobby said
I
knock
think
you
that's
out.
the point.
Pugilistically yours, I'm Mark.
And I have no idea what he was talking about. I'm telling him, oh, it's already the Arrow Corner. Can you believe it?
We're throwing an arrow
Boy,
into
they're
the
out
mix.
after me.
And we are the
Cinemaniacs. Yeah, what the hell?
So,
Yes?
I'll be right up front about this.
Okay.
I don't see any sense in beating around the bush any longer. I saw 11 movies in the theater this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
None of them are what we're about to talk about right now.
Okay.
I did not do my homework this
So it's
week.
all me.
I will make up for it in the video department.
Okay.
So, did you see anything new in the
I
theater
did, as a matter
weekend?
of fact, and let me jump right into it. Here we are. Those wonderful secret agents across the pond are back in their nicely, tightly manicured British suits, and Julianne Moore is causing them some trouble. She wants to take out all of the Kingsmen with the Golden Circle. But I'm done. So, I'll take over, I suppose, and I'll start talking about it. The original, it took me a while, and you need to compare, when there's sequels and stuff, you need to compare them to the original. I think anybody who liked the original is going to love this one. I haven't had this much fun in a movie in a decade. Both my sons went with me to go see this. We saw it on a huge screen. It's a little too long. You certainly could trim some stuff. If you remember from the original, it's got a quirky feel to it. They don't play it seriously. And by that I mean, while there's funny stuff in it and there's loads and loads of action and unbelievable mayhem in both of them, it's like the feel I get is that the filmmakers know it's a wink wink and we're having some fun with this. So if you like that about the first one, this one is just no holds barred. We see a lot of returning characters. We see a lot of new characters. There's a really fun bit. Julianne Moore is the evil woman she's mad because she's this diabolical drug czar. But she's been ostracized to like South America. She has hundreds of billions of dollars, but because she's a druggie and nobody likes her, she has to stay down there. And so that's what makes her mad. So she has this big, huge plan, and part of it was taking out the Kingsman for some reason. There's a lot of, this is what's stupid, there's a lot of plot that doesn't weave together and make a lot of sense, but it's needed for the film. So the reason she's doing all this stuff and doesn't make a lot of sense, but you go along with it, I think, and if you do go along with it, you'll have fun with it. Because of this tenor, this unusual tenor that I think The Kingsman is unique in what it brought to the original movie and this one. But anyway, so she decides to take over the world and hostage the world, ransom it. Because she's laced her drugs with this weird thing that is eventually going to kill you, but it takes you through different stages. And there's a really fun bit with Channing Tatum that I won't give away because it would give away the real joke. But this whole movie and the filmmakers just seem to have such a sense of what the audience is expecting and wanting and giving it to us that, again, I think if you like the original, you're going to like this one a lot. It's lighter-hearted, I think, although it's still pretty grisly.
I remember the original being really dark and mean-spirited.
Right, and it's not nearly that much. Bad things certainly happen to people, and there's lots of death and mayhem, but it's much funnier, I think. And again, my major comment was it's a little too long. It certainly could use some trimming. I was upset that of all of the kind of cameo roles and stuff that we had, there's a terrific bit with a very famous person that Julianne Moore takes hostage. And anybody who's seen this knows immediately who I'm talking about. It was loads and loads and very funny. But I thought Halle Berry was a talent that was really kind of, all she did was sit at a computer and type in the computer. And what a waste of this talent. Now maybe she'll be back because there's clear indications of where they're going to go with sequels afterwards. And so hopefully she'll be back with a little bit more to do. But again, my major comment was I haven't had this much fun in a movie in a decade, and I can't wait to see it again and buy it on 4K.
Do you think this is accessible for those who did not see the first film?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Everything's
don't need
designed
well,
to.
and part of
yeah.
the things I think we were talking about last week was, and you see it in the trailer, not this one, but in several of the other ones, is that all the Kingsman's headquarters are blown up. And are we supposed to feel like it was when the Enterprise was blown up after watching it for like 4 movies
Too many
in 40
movies
years?
jump to the destruction of something important, not far enough into a film
and we
series,
didn't
I
care.
think.
And so, so that was part of it that we were talking about. Don't really care about that, but that's the reason they come over to America and work with Jeff Bridges and Channing Tatum and all these guys in The Statesman. Bridges is only, I can't imagine Bridges took a day to shoot his bit. He's in a room and he's still got the marbles from True Grit in his mouth, and he drinks whiskey. And
Them some tasty marbles.
That's about all he does. So some wasted characters, but it was fun to see them. So again, I had loads and loads of fun with this.
Well, if I may introduce a film that I know nearly nothing about.
Go to it.
This is always fun. Watch the trailer and see how close I came. So Jackie Chan shows up in some live action sequences in the following film regarding martial arts and secret societies and little tiny toys that you really don't want to step on. It is I might pronounce it wrong, the Ninjago movie. Okay, actually, as it turns out, neither of us saw this.
Nope, so there you go.
I was at a drive-in this weekend, and it's a 4-screener, and at one point I did look over my shoulder to see what was on the other screen, and I saw a flash of this movie, and that's what let me know that there's actually some live-action elements to it with Jackie Chan. Fair enough. I think he's sitting having dinner somewhere, so I don't think it's action with
However,
him.
speaking of a flash of this movie, I did see the new trailer to the Justice League.
Did you?
See how we tie all these things together? It's amazing.
So anyway, this is out. This is from the people who brought you the other Lego movies. And interestingly enough, the action apparently, at least in part, was done by the Jackie Chan stunt team with motion capture. Frankly, I would rather see camcorder footage of them doing that than to watch a silly Lego movie. But that's just me, and that's me spouting off about a film I didn't see.
There you go.
Speaking of a film one of us did see, speaking of battles.
A film, oh, that's not bad. Okay, but throw yourself back to the 70s and get all your bouffant hairstyles and long pants or whatever and things back on, because we're going to talk about some people butting heads to heads. One big, huge loudmouth guy who just thinks that men are the greatest, aren't we all? And a woman who comes to her fair sex's, or maybe not so fair sex's defense. They meet on the courts and not in the courts. It's Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs in The Battle of the Sexes.
Water, water, please. So I get water.
Yeah, they even said it then. So yeah, anybody who's, what do you got to be, 40 or 50,
Something,
I guess,
yeah.
around my age, because I remember this very distinctly, not only because it hit right when I was, in my teens or mid-teens, but it also took place in Indianapolis, where I grew up. My dad made "Go Billie Jean" and "Go Bobby Go" bumper stickers that he tried to sell down at the place. This was huge for those of you who remember. Billie Jean just wipes the floor with him, and I said off the air that I wasn't a fan of Steve Carell. I guess that's not true, because I like his performances and a lot of stuff, and he's been in a lot of good things. I'm just not crazy about The Office. He was terrific as Riggs. Emma Stone is terrific, and just, in many respects, looks just like Billie Jean. I was like, how'd they get this footage? Because she looks so much like her. So it was a strange kind of blast from the past. Really felt like, you teleported us back into the 70s, and that's what good production design is going to do. But kind of wondering, why this was made. It comes out at a strange time, and it's big on at the time, the date of women's rights, and I guess this is kind of a strange comment, but I like to think we've changed. Perhaps we haven't really a whole lot. So maybe society needs to be reminded of it. But I just thought it was kind of a strange topic to be bringing up in a strange moment in history that didn't need to be made. But for what it was, the two of them are terrific, and it was certainly an interesting film.
Is it comedy, drama, mix, lean more toward...
Certainly a mix. Lean more toward drama, I would say, yeah.
Because the trailer makes it look relatively light, so I just didn't know which way it goes.
Yeah.
So that's all that we're talking about that we saw in theaters this weekend. We thank our friends at the Brattleboro, the historic Latches Theater in Brattleboro, Vermont, for letting us in for free. Frankly, honestly, that's what it is. And encourage anybody who loves historic theaters to take a look, because it's pretty pretty. Now we move on to that which you can see on the home video platform, media format service of your choice. The first of which being a Universal monster movie. That's the best way I'd describe it.
It's a monster movie no matter where you are. It's universal.
It's a monster movie with universal themes.
Ba-dum-bum.
Tom Cruise, of all people, stars in an updating of the classic early 30s Boris Karloff film, Who Are You Gonna Call When You Raid a Tomb in Egypt, and somebody is not so happy about that and wants to suck the life force out of people in order to rule the world. Well, you, for better or worse, have on your hands the mummy.
Working on that death ray.
Still.
You know, it's not easy. You gotta find a mountain, you gotta get permits.
This looked terrible to me from the trailers.
Okay.
It's all CGI, and monster movies aren't action movies, horror movies aren't action movies. I don't find CG and things blowing up and people running away from peril scary. But I had a really good time with this.
I did too, yeah. Okay, good.
I went in with I think it's because I expected this was going to be terrible.
Right.
Tom Cruise in a mummy movie? What is this? This is much more an updating, I think, to me, of the Brendan Fraser mummy style of mummy film than the Boris Karloff.
Because Cruise is this kind of silly action hero.
He's like a dumb Indiana Jones, basically. And this movie's very funny. It feels a lot of the vibe to me was like Army of Darkness. It more or less lifts the structure of Life Force, minus you're not pulling somebody from a comet, you're pulling them from a tomb. With the sexy kung fu mummy, but I thought it was a heck of a lot of fun. It's an action movie. It's not a horror movie.
Yeah.
It's got some gruesome things here and there, but overall, it's a thrill ride. I don't know that it did terribly well in the theater, and it's a shame because this is clearly trying to set up a series of films. You have Russell Crowe as Henry Jekyll, who basically, it's this lame thing all movie and TV are doing now, where it's, we have a secret society that keeps tabs on all these creatures and all the whatever to try to unify them together, which is what they're doing with the Godzilla movies and King Kong and all that now too. But I would say if you like the Brendan Fraser mummy movies, this is a similar vibe to those. If you like Tom Cruise action movies, that's what you get. And if you like Boris Karloff movies, they are all on home video.
There you go. Yeah, I agree. This isn't a horror movie, really, by any sense. There are some maybe sort of scary things for little kids. But I thought also, as an action film and as just kind of even a comedy, that this was loads of fun. Crowe is a fun little cameo that clearly either he and Cruise, or certainly Crowe, will be this recurrent theme if, as is our understanding, Universal is going to be bringing a lot of these old monster movies back. And I kind of hope so.
I don't know if this did well enough to justify more. That's what I wonder, because it can't have been a cheap film.
And I don't think box office wise it really did. It's particularly with, not only with all of the effects, but with the stars that they got. I forget the actress's name, but she's terrific as the mummy. She's creepy looking and scary and good looking. And
why it's Sofia Boutella.
Right. She was also in...
She was in Atomic Blonde.
Right, Atomic Blonde was the thing.
The last Star Trek film.
Right.
Many things.
I think she's certainly up and coming as well. But yeah, I was surprised and had a good time with this as well, as I didn't.
It's a wonder.
He keeps working on that. But what I always kind of wondered, and here we are, what Chris Pine is doing when he's not on board the Enterprise. Well, he happens to be flying another kind of a ship as he's trying to stop those nasty Germans in World War I. But whoops, he kind of flies off the radar into this strange, mysterious place that's all kind of surrounded by really tough female types, one of whom happens to grow up to be Wonder Woman.
That's why you can help yourself grow bigger and stronger 8 ways with Wonder Bread.
Yeah. So okay, I think I've said before. I worked with George Perez on the Wonder Woman revamp in the '80s. It was the late '80s, and so I know all sorts of stuff about Diana and everything. So, but that didn't have anything to do with. I was worried that was why I found the first 15, 20 minutes when we're on Paradise Island with little Diana, and she's running around, and Mom's saying, "Oh, be careful." And I was worried that was why I thought it was bad and kind of boring. The good news is that wasn't the case, because I got this on 4K. It looks great. It's a great 4K transfer. The CG during that Paradise Island time is just awful. It's just terrible. Everything else is great. I still found that first 10, 15 minutes to be pretty boring. Once, and this isn't giving anything away, Chris Pine is an American-British Allied agent who acts like a German soldier so he can steal this secret, horrible formula that the bad guys have created. And then in trying to escape, he ends up on Paradise Island. The Germans follow him, and that's how the Amazons and Wonder Woman get involved with all of this. Once he gets there, and it's not because he's there, but Gal Gadot, as the older Wonder Woman, comes on. I loved every minute of this film from that point on. It's my favorite movie of the year so far, with the possible exception of Street Cat. We'll talk about that when we get to the end of the year. But she is so terrific. She just represents, I want to be Wonder Woman because she represents all that is good in everything that could be humankind or even, Godkind and things like that. She's a terrific role model for not just young girls, but for everybody.
For humanity.
It's a terrifically funny story. There's pathos and catharsis, and there's a wonderful little love story. And I just thought this was a terrific film once we got away from Paradise Island, and rapidly became my favorite movie of the year so far.
Like most films,
yes,
15 to 20 minutes too long.
Yes.
I really like this a lot, and I agree. The Paradise Island stuff at the beginning was a little draggy toward the beginning. It sets up the notion that there's this hidden island the rest of the world can't see unless you kind of stumble across it, I guess, that is this warrior race of women.
And there's some mysterious power that they hold that can thwart evil if it ever shows up.
And the relationship between Chris Pine and Wonder Woman was fantastic. It was fairly equal and cool. Gal Gadot was fantastic as Wonder Woman.
Wonderful.
And I'm a huge fan of the Linda Carter Wonder Woman, so I was like, sat there with arms crossed saying, how are you going to do better than that?
Prove it to
and the
me.
answer is you kind of do it this way. Not necessarily better, it's different. It's a totally different vibe and all that. The action was fantastic and great when it happens. What I love the most about it, to cut this short, is that it's a superhero who smiles, and we have not had one of those in a decade or more. Everybody is brooding, and she can be a badass and kick some touche when she needs to, but overall, she, as they said in the old show, she fights a war with love. I really like this movie a lot. I hope the sequel that is soon to be made is equally as good as this, and they don't try to make it too big and sprawling and all that. And again, honestly, make it 90 minutes and have her stop a runaway train. It'll still be good, and it doesn't have to be 2.5 hours long. Because really, the end of the world gets tiresome when you see that 4 or 5 times a year in these movies. That's what, like you were talking about the Kingsman. I was listening to the plot. I'm like, is it an end of the world scenario yet again?
Yep.
Anyway, I thought Wonder Woman was quite great.
Good.
And speaking of totally unbelievable stories in which scale, scope, and all semblance of reality, time and space are torn asunder for foolishness, we have a fact-based story about a man whose new love comes down with something not so pleasant, and he has to try to determine where he and she and they and we all stand when confronted with the big sick.
FedEx has ground shipping?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you just woke up from a 23-year coma.
Yeah, it was a long one.
I keep wishing they'd come out with a different trailer, because they're not going to now that it's out on video, because I'm kind of sick of that, and it's such a great movie. This one surprised me a lot. I was thinking I was going to go into this, here's this like touchy-feely, sort of sad film, and it's going to be so politically correct because it's about racism and all that kind of stuff. And this hits on every single level, in my opinion. It's not super heavy drama, but it's it's got an important theme. It's got some terrific performances, even without knowing that, one, it's a true story, and two, it was actually his story.
Yep.
The actual actor is the guy who wrote it and was in it. It's got super tear-jerking moments, and it's laugh out loud funny. I'm sure we're going to see The Big Sick at the Oscars all over the place. At least I hope so, because this is certainly on my top 5 favorite films.
Now, would you say the efforts that are...
You're not even going to talk about The Big Sick? Or
I didn't see The Big Sick.
Oh, he didn't see it. Okay,
I'm just trying to set up the next
matter.
intro.
So he doesn't know.
And in the interest of time, tell us about the next movie.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Sam Elliott plays, where am I? I can't even see where I am these days. We're really on par today, aren't we? Sam Elliott plays an ailing movie star. I'll just remember exactly what it says. Who starts to try to come to grips with his ailing life and with mortality as he tries to struggle to be, for his family and everyone else, the hero.
That's a nice sandwich. You did good, Frankie.
He has a pretty identifiable voice and everything like that, doesn't he? Yeah.
This looks really good, but I didn't see it.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll catch up on this, and you can I'll let you take over since I've been doing so many of them.
Oh,
here.
don't you worry. You're going to hear plenty from me.
Yes,
soon.
absolutely. No, this is clearly a vehicle for him. I don't know if this was written for him or anything like that, but he fits really well into it. He's a real solid personality whom I didn't know a lot when I was growing up, and I've seen a lot of his stuff recently, like in the past 10, 20 years. But he's certainly an icon, and he fits well within the persona of this character, because obviously, and I think this was the intention of the script, was it's also commenting on either Sam Elliott's notoriety or anybody else who has been in motion pictures. In many respects, people who don't like movies about movies might not be real crazy about this, but it doesn't, that's really just kind of the basis. This is it's another movie about an older person reflecting on his or her life. What's the value of living in humankind, and have we done anything with our lives? And I thought he was really good. I think you may see an Oscar nod for him as a result of this, not just because it's about movies, but because he's really good.
You saw this out of town?
I did.
I'm not sure how wide a release this has currently.
Well, it's on video.
Oh, it's on video.
Again,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is on video.
Oh, I didn't realize. Oh, yeah, we are on video. Boy,
video.
It's been a long
We're all
weekend.
together today.
I will be so much sharper next week, I promise. I'm so sorry.
You said everything, I think, getting... what happened was, when you're not really on top of things, the whole show feels kind of fishy in many respects. Not quite sure where you're going with it. See, I'm working my way into his job.
This is good.
So
this is good.
Thanks.
So we bring ourselves to my favorite part of the show is the Arrow Video Corner. Personally.
Yeah, I know why.
Why? Because those are the movies I bother to watch.
I keep trying.
I don't know. This is really cool. Okay, it's a movie we both have seen long time ago. Movie probably a lot of you have seen too, and if you haven't, you really should. This is so funny. This is not, when you think Arrow Video, if you're a fan of the label like me, if you watch this show, this is like, they put this out?
Right.
So here is what I would consider kind of a modern classic from 1988-89. John Cleese wrote and stars, along with Jamie Lee Curtis, Kevin Kline, and Michael Palin in a fish called Wanda.
Just heat, then serve delicious sea sparkle fish sticks. Look for the name in your store's freezer.
You seemed uncomfortable calling it a modern classic. I think it fulfills every criterion that you need.
I'm too close to it. I saw this in the theater when it came out. I traveled back when I didn't do this thing kind of thing normally. Some friends, parents and I and my friend traveled to another town to see it because it wasn't in wide release originally. It's directed by Charles Crichton, who did the Lavender Hill Mob and a lot of like classic British like Ealing comedies and things like that. And it has that vibe. It's a heist movie, and it's really about the aftermath of a heist and how these crooks are trying to get the stolen jewels and dupe the prosecutor into. It's a lot of twisty-turny plotting, but it's also very, very funny. It plays very strongly off U.S. versus American isms and customs and ways of carrying yourself. Kevin Kline, I think he got an Oscar for this movie.
Yeah, it's
for his role as the crazy ex-CIA psycho. Everybody in this is great. It's very funny. It moves right along. It's Arrow Video, so I can honestly say I've owned this film in multiple formats. I bought the VHS used at a video store when it came out, and I've gotten the DVD. This is the best this has ever looked. It did not look this good in the theater, and I can remember. The colors are gorgeous. It's razor sharp. The extras are voluminous. There's one or two audio commentaries, including one with John Cleese. There's I believe they ported the extras over from the last deluxe DVD edition, so you have 20 minutes plus of deleted scenes with commentary by Cleese telling you where they went and why they took it out and all that. Some of them are quite funny. You can see why they took them out. And then there's some new extras as well. So I didn't make it through all the extras in the time I had to watch this, but what I did see was a lot of fun. And this is one I would have bought myself anyway.
Right. Oh,
so
yeah.
it's very cool that this is out now if you're a Python fan or if you remember this movie. And if you haven't seen this movie, this is a really, really funny movie, and I highly recommend it.
I do too.
Speaking of films that Arrow has released recently, we have another one. It's just come back to me. We have a film directed by the man who brought you Kiss Me Deadly, the famous Mike Hammer adaptation. And this film stars Jack Palance and
somebody else.
I'm blanking. How about we roll the trailer, and after that, I'll have all the information you possibly would want to know about The Big Knife.
But this method doesn't work with a tomato.
Oh, sorry.
The hottest hunk of film Hollywood ever shot.
I'm glad we weren't on camera when I said that.
He was making commentary.
Yes.
So what you have here with The Big Knife is black and white melodrama based on a stage play, and it shows. I thought this movie, okay, as we always say, it's Arrow, so this looks amazing.
Okay.
And if you like crisp, like studio black and white photography from the 50s, it's gorgeous to look at. It takes place all in one house, or open plan house, so to speak. So the architecture in there and the decor is very, very interesting to look at. So I was enjoying the visuals more than I was anything else about the movie, really. I sometimes personally have a beef with films that are based on plays and really feel like it. And it wasn't long into this movie before I realized we're never going outside this one big room.
Yeah.
People go in and out of rooms, and it's a lot of slamming doors and coming in and coming and going and all that. So to me, it suffered a little for that. Some of the acting is way over the top, and I mean some of the acting, meaning all of the acting that's done by Rod Steiger in this film. He starts off low-key, and he gets laughably ridiculous by the end of the film. Not that he was ever known for his light touch in the films. Jack Palance is really good, and it's rare to see him as the hero, like the good guy in a film. Basically, the story is that Palance is like a He-Man hunk of a movie star who owes a lot to this manager or agent or studio head. I'm not quite clear who Steiger really is.
There's a lot as in money or like
he
moral?
He owes his career to this guy, and he's under pressure to sign a contract with him. He doesn't want to, but there is some scandal that's been covered up. That the more the film goes on, the more you realize there have been some dirty dealings that are being overlooked, but there's a lot of threats to expose these dirty dealings, and it might lead to murder of somebody. I mean, this is pretty dark, seamy stuff. The cast, it's a good cast. You have like Everett Sloane, you have Shelley Winters. Not that I've ever been a fan of Shelley Winters, but she's relatively subtle in this film. And as I said, Palance it's maybe one of his better roles. Overall, it's a very Hollywood movie, so I don't ever know what general audiences, how much they care about the inner doings of contracts and studios and companies and all that kind of stuff. Ultimately, I didn't care for it that much. It was really better as a visual than anything else to me, and to see Jack Palance in a rare good guy role. Not a huge amount in the way of extras on this. I think there's a commentary by a scholar or two of the filmmakers and of the playwright that did this, so you get a lot of context for how this came to be. I still say Kiss Me Deadly is a far better film, but if you're ever curious to see about what else did Robert Aldrich do? Well, here's a nice 2 hours in black and white to show you that. Speaking of knives, one is involved in the titular incident that sets the wheels of this next film in motion. Up next, we have an early 70s Italian. It's a giallo, it's an action movie, it's a cop thriller, it's a comedy, it's much, much more, but mostly it is the suspected death of a minor.
Call me 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store.
Hi.
Whoop, we're
talking about something totally different.
Indeed.
So this film does have English translation. If you caught the clip we just ran, it was in Italian. That's all that we could find. But I chose to watch this with an English dub because that's how I've always watched these kind of movies. But you could also watch it in Italian with English subtitles.
Nice. How does he feel when you call him that?
He's guy's just a dub.
Anyway.
You lug. Directed by Sergio Martino, who I meant to look up what else he's done because I liked this so much. I want to see if he's done other movies that are similar to this. So it starts off like a giallo, like it's a murder movie, and then it's a police investigation of who killed this young woman, and then there's this amazing car chase that puts most of what's in action movies right now to shame, which then becomes really funny. Like it's like a Clouseau car chase, but it's just crazy good action, slam bang action. And then it becomes a serious drama again. And so it's like multiple genres rolled into one, but it works. Other than that really silly part. That really silly part, I'm like, okay, this is legitimately funny, but what is this movie going to be funny from now on? The music is outstanding. I like 70s horror and cop movie type music. It's a certain style.
Right.
And this is like one of the pieces of music, it's like Goblin should have sued because it's like 2 notes different from some Deep Red music. But other than that, I thought the music was fantastic. It moves right along. It's just a fun slam bang Italian crime film. Not a lot in the way of extras on this. There's a little bit. I didn't get to pursue it too much, but it gives you, again, a little bit more context for the movie you just watched. I really like this a lot. Of all of the, Arrow's put out a lot of Italian crime movies, and some of them better than others, but I have to put this up in the top maybe 3 of the ones that I've seen that were new to me, and a lot of these have been new to me. Speaking of new to me, is not new of me, new to me, and probably to you too, is yet another. See, I'm trying to get caught up with this pile I have at home. We have a Mario Bava directed tale of brotherhood and Vikings and history and swords and all kinds of craziness. And the film is entitled, I had to look, I want to call it something else, but that's a Terry Jones movie. This is called Erik the Conqueror.
We don't have enough massive, exciting spectacles these days.
No, our spectacle back then they got like 200 people up and together and they made costumes for everybody, put them on horses. Now some guy's going Control V.
Exactly right. Yeah, flip.
So this I learned. This is why I love the extras. The extras on this, there's a great commentary by Tim Lucas from the sadly former Video Watchdog magazine, and who's Mario Bava's biographer. And he gives you all the context you want for where this movie came from. It's basically a knockoff of the Kirk Douglas movie, The Vikings.
Okay,
it's real similar to The Vikings from what I heard. But that's okay, because I don't know The Vikings very well. I just watched Erik the Conqueror. And basically the story is 2 brothers are separated, not at birth, but when they're very young, raiders come into their town and they get separated, and one goes on one side of this war and the other winds up in the other camp, and they grow up and they face off against each other, not knowing they're brothers. Will they find out or not? Will brother go against brother? Who will survive and what will be left of them? This movie is gorgeous to look at. This transfer is like, makes your eyes pop out. And that was one of the Bava's strengths, is he was a cameraman initially, and he's very, very strong with lighting and camera tricks and effects. So it's beautiful to look at. It's of the era of like the Hercules movies and things, so historical epic is, I guess, what I would put this into. Right. A good amount of action, a lot of melodrama. It is not a horror movie, but it looks like one sometimes. The huge sections of this film are set in this underground lair that this group of men, I don't know if they're Vikings, I was a little fuzzy on which side was which, frankly, but one of the groups is, and they're like giant skulls and like purple and green lights in this giant tree, and it looks like something out of a nightmare. It's amazing. So it's old style studio drama, basically, with some interesting and inventive action that, again, listening to the commentary, may have just been ripped off from the Vikings. So the transfer looks great. You have your choice of English or Italian language. You have a good number of extras. There's like an hour-long phone interview that Tim Lucas did with Cameron Mitchell long ago that gives context for this movie, but also just his entire working relationship with Bava, because they made 3 or 4 movies together. So I liked this a lot, and this is not the kind of movie that I would normally gravitate to, but I like Mario Bava a lot. So I think if you are not well versed in Bava or interested, you probably would want to be somebody who likes old style epics like El Cid and the Vikings and things like that to want to get into this. But it's a great package, as always, with Arrow, and I'm very glad to have gotten this, and it's going on my shelf. So that's all we have prepared today.
Yep.
But I think there's enough time for a song. So
is that right?
No. So was there anything else you would like to discuss?
Not at this point.
Let's see. Rare week. We have
see
Breathing
Tom Cruise
Room.
Again next week, probably.
Tom Cruise in American Made, which I get the vibe of almost like a Blow kind of movie
that's
with
really
that.
what it looks like, yeah.
Yeah, that looks interesting to me.
I think so.
I'm not sure if we're going to be liking Tom Cruise in this movie or not. I vote toward no from the trailer, but we'll see. And there's a remake of Flatliners.
Yep.
The 90s, mostly forgotten. It's one of those things where when they talk about remakes, it's like, really, Flatliners? Does that have any cultural resonance anymore? I guess it's better than remaking a classic. I am going to be away for the weekend once again, watching God knows an ungodly number of films on the big screen that are not made within decades of the day in which we sit. But I will also have time to see some indoor movies, so I will participate more next week. Until then, I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are the
Cinemaniacs.